Now here's the part of the February '77 phone trip that we had planned originally to make. We're going to the Highland Telephone Company area. Our first stop was Monroe, where I dropped Ben off at a good payphone with a tape recorder, a pickup coil, some batteries, and a pocket full of dimes. I then went to a nearby town, Washingtonville, in order to simultaneously record from there with my Vivitar tape recorder. That's where I discovered that my Vivitar was not working right. Here is the tape that I did end up recording from Washingtonville with the other tape recorder after I had picked up Ben and found out that, I should have made sure that he had a lot more dimes than he had, because he was going to need a whole bunch. Anyway, we'll get to Ben's tape later. Here is my Washingtonville tape. The phones here are on a semi-dial tone first basis. You pick up the phone and get a dial tone, and you have to deposit a dime in order to dial anything. The temporary interruption during the dial tone is this single slot phone registering a dime and making it possible for me to use my touch tones as well as putting a ground on the line so that the selectors can move. Those pulsing noises, plus this background buzz, are typical sounds of the GTE 102 director system. I dialed my office code and now I'm waiting. There, the director has now dropped out, and director is the right term here. I am on the originating switching train, possibly the first selector, and I'm going to flash a 0.
May I help you?
Oh, operator?
Yes?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I got you by mistake.
All right.
Bye-bye.
May I help you?
Yeah, could you get me, 212-393-8877?
Thank you. There'll be 95 cents more for the first 3 minutes, please.
Oh, 90, oh, I'll have to call. That's 95. I'll call later.
All right, thank
Bye-bye.
you.
The operator was on a cordboard or cordboard equivalent. That loud buzz had to do with the coin return process. It's the 130-volt DC signal in one polarity coming from the central office to make the phone return the dime. In the other polarity, it would make the phone collect the dime. In that respect, the coin collect and return are like prepay in the Bell system. This is a step-by-step office. The director system is a surrogate dialer that goes between the customer and the actual step equipment. The customer can rotary dial or touch tone a number, and then the director system can change that to whatever is most efficient. The local office code 496 is effectively absorbed by the director system so that when the customer dials 496, nothing really happens, although the director does make some noises that we hear. When I dial the third digit of the office code, it will make noises, but nothing's been dialed yet. The next 4 digits will be repeated one by one. And there we had an intra-office call. Sorry for the distortion on the ring. It was really loud and my tape recorder distorted it. On an intra-office call, the director just absorbs the office code. It could do something different in other places, such as cutting it down to just the last digit, or maybe even changing it to another digit that's not included in the office code. Long-distance dialing from coin phones is not provided here.
I think there aren't any call signs. It would be interesting if it were.
Dialing 496, the local office code, and waiting is a way to drop the director without dialing anything. The director is dropped, and we're on the first selector. I'm going to try flashing a 1 just in case there are toll trunks on the switching train that you can't access using the phone normally. I flashed a 1 and we've cut into something.
This is a recording from Washingtonville, New York. The number you have dialed is not in service at this time. If you need assistance, please hang up and dial your operator. This is a recording.
We now know that at least from coin phones, 1 is a vacant level. No toll trunk there. Probably there's no other place where you can find one. However, you wouldn't know for sure unless you had jammed the outgoing switching train completely, which is actually pretty... I've done it a lot. Now here, for inter-office calls, the director does convert the 3-digit office code into a 2-digit trunk group location. For example, I've just dialed 294, the code for Goshen, one of the local offices. The trunks are located on 29. That's what the director dialed. We're now sitting on a Goshen trunk. That was the thousands digit 0. I could hear a cut-in from Goshen with T-carrier sounds in it. We're not fully hearing the trunk yet because the director is still here. Now the last 3 digits, 111.
Operator. This is a recording from Goshen, New York. The number you have dialed is not in service at this time. If you need assistance, please hang up and dial your operator. This is a recording from Goshen, New York.
Since the Goshen trunks are located on 29, we can get into them by dialing 496, our local office code, which goes nowhere, and then 29. Okay, the Goshen trunk has been selected. Now I'm going to dial a vacant level. We'll hear the recording coming through our register sender until the register sender times out.
The number you have dialed is not in service at this time. If you need assistance, please hang up and dial your operator. This is a recording from Goshen, New York. The number you have dialed is not in service at this time. If you need assistance, please hang up and dial your operator. This is a recording from Goshen, New York. The number...
There's something about the way this phone company installs their equipment that leads to this clanging noise on recordings. We were getting that on Highland Mills, calling in from Long Island. Here it is again locally in the Goshen recording.
Is not in service at this time. If you need assistance, please hang up and dial your operator.
Another thing we could do to reach Goshen would be to dial our own office code, 496, and then wait for the director to completely time out before anything has been dialed. At that point, we could flash 29 to get into the Goshen trunks directly. In the next call, I'm trying to do that, and I hit something else by mistake that turns out to be reasonably interesting. Of course, when I flash like that, it's to simulate a rotary dial phone. I was hoping that if I rotary dialed 496, the director would drop right away. But it didn't. I'm having to wait. Now it's dropped. I flashed a 2, and the selector has cut into something. Now I'm going to try to flash a 9. Oops. After the 6th pulse, there was a burst of low tone, so I think I may have cut in on a 6th level and then dialed a few pulses after that. We're somewhere. Here's 1. Well, this is a busy signal tone, but there's not an actual busy line here. This is coming from a test circuit. Okay, I hung up and my dime has returned now. I'm going to try this another way. What I've stumbled into is that there is some sort of a test circuit on 2, 6. 2 goes to a second selector. 6 on that selector goes to a test circuit with a loud, old-fashioned dial tone. In order to get into it the easy way, I'm going to dial 496 with my touch tone. That won't go anywhere. Then I'll touch tone 2, 6. That should put us into the test circuit, although at that moment the director system will still be between us and it. So here's dialing 49626. I dialed 496. Hey, that's a phone in the neighborhood ringing. Ah, they answered. Anyway, 26. Oh my, that's the test dial tone on 26 coming through the register sender. We're not even fully connected, and look how loud it is. That was the test line responding to the rotary dial pulses via the director. Here's a 0. Okay, I dialed the last digit of a 7-digit number. It was a 0. The register sender dropped out. We're now on the test circuit directly. And that double beep you just heard is the test circuit's verdict on the dial pulse speed of the register sender, which just dialed a 0 into it. This is a test circuit for testing the speed of a rotary dial. And by going buzz buzz, it is saying that the register sender's dial pulse speed is perfect. And at this point, if I want to make it do something, I'll have to use my switch hook because the touch tones don't work on the test line. It thinks I'm too slow. Let me try flashing a 0 again. Oh, come on. Okay, I give up. I'm going to dial a 1, and that'll go back to the tone. It'll be full volume this time because the register sender's not there. And since this probably is the legacy dial tone of this exchange, that is, before the days when it had the director system, I'm going to let it play a while. When we got the busy tone earlier, that probably came from another feature of that test line. I didn't go back and investigate that further. So we know the test line is on 2.6. It seems like the 2s in this office's switching train have outgoing trunks. We already know the Goshen trunks are on 2.9. Let's see what's on 2.7 by dialing 49627. Well, that definitely went somewhere. Let me dial a 0. Maybe it'll be a vacant level in whatever office this is.
This is a recording from Maybrook, New York. The number you have dialed is not in service at this time. If you need assistance, please hang up and dial your operator. This is a recording from Maybrook, New York. The number you have dialed is not in service at this time. If you need assistance, please hang up and dial your operator. This is a recording. This is a recording from Maybrook, New York. The number you have dialed is not in service at this time. If you need assistance, please hang up and dial your operator. This is a
Okay, Maybrook 427. What happened there is we dialed 496. That just put the register sender ready to repeat whatever we dialed next. 27 selected the Maybrook trunk, and then 0 was a vacant level there. At first we heard the recording softly through the register sender until finally it just timed out, and then we heard it at full volume. Once I was cut through, I was able to flash, which put the vacant level trunk back to the ring mode, waiting for the recording to get around again. Let's try dialing 427 as 427. That was weird. It gave me a new dial tone without returning my dime. Twice. Finally, when I hung up a little longer, it did return my dime and behave more normally. Alright, I've dialed 496 so far. Now let's try 28. Might be a trunk to another office.
This is a recording from Washingtonville, New York. The number you have dialed is not in service at this time. If you need assistance, please hang up and dial your operator. This is a recording from Washingtonville, New York. The number you have dialed is not in service at this time. If you need assistance, please hang up and dial your operator.
Okay, so 28 is a vacant level. We heard the recording at a low level at first because the register sender was still on the line, and when it timed out, the recording got louder. Now I'm going to just flash. Wow, the buzz is loud on this particular sender. Now normally the buzz gets softer when you put the dime in, but I didn't have to this time because it just gave me a working dial tone without returning my dime. And that was a successful intra-office call, just a working group within Washingtonville. There's another local office, Chester, 469. From here it goes over a direct wire trunk. The trunk group is on 20.
Sounded like 29, didn't it?
No, it's 20. 29 is Goshen. I just dialed 496, my own office code. Now 20. And we have cut into the Chester trunk. The register sender's still on the line. Now I'll dial 11 to finish the number.
Just like that.
So what I just dialed, 496-2011, looked like an intra-office phone number, but actually, since 20 goes to Chester, there can't be any phone numbers beginning with 49620. What we were hearing there was not my local ring, but the ring from the Chester vacant level trunk. The local ring here sounds like this. But we heard this. That's Chester's ring. Had I stayed on the line, the Chester vacant level recording would have come on. This next call does go to the Chester vacant level recording, and something strange happens. I'm going to dial 469-0000. Dialing the last 3 digits very quickly may be what causes the strange events.
This is a recording from Chester, New York. The number you have dialed is not in service at this time. This is a recording from Chester, New York. The number you have dialed is not in service at this time. If you need assistance, please hang up and dial your operator. This is a recording from Chester, New York. The number you have dialed is not in service at this time. If you need assistance, please hang up and dial your operator.
The register sender, instead of dropping after the 7th digit, just hung. I then dialed an extra 0 in case that would help, but it didn't. Finally, it ended up just timing out, and here we are on the recording. But we're not back to normal yet. When I flash, we go into this weird mode where we're still on the trunk but can barely hear it.
And dial your operator. This is a recording.
Hey, the sender buzz is still here. I tried to hang up. Where are we now? Now we have the buzz full volume. I'm thinking maybe the sender link got sort of jammed, because it shouldn't even be on the line now that the call's gone through. I hope I didn't break it. All I did was dial the number really fast, and all that happened. GTE, what can I say? Anyway, at the center of this whole area is Monroe, with the codes 783, which is STEP, and 782, which is a number 1 EAX, an early electronic switch by GTE. The Monroe trunks are on the 8 level here. When I call 783, you can hear the 8 being dialed onto our local switching train, a cut-in sound, and then on the Monroe trunk it dials the 3. To pick that out, you have to sort of ignore the lower level pulsing sounds that don't mean anything, that precede and underlie the pulses that do mean something. That's an 8 dialed locally and a 3 dialed onto Monroe. Now here's the whole call. Monroe's step has actually a Stromberg-sounding ring, but the director equipment, as we'll hear on a later program, is GTE.
sorry, the number you have reached is not in service at this time. If you need assistance, please hang up and dial your operator. This is a recording from Monroe, New York. I'm sorry, the number you have reached is not in service at this time.
The Monroe trunks are T-carrier that sounds very like Bell Systems circa 1972.
I'm sorry, the number you...
I'm flashing to set the recording back to the queue, of course. Next call is to 782. That's the number 1 EAX. I should have called it more, but from here I just made one brief call.
I'm sorry, the number...
That answered. I ran the tape back, so we don't have the coin collect recorded there, but that's okay. The next call has it. Highland Mills 928 is reached by way of the Monroe step. You'll hear an 8 being dialed to get to Monroe, and then a 5 over the Monroe trunks goes to Highland Mills. The carrier noise between Monroe and Highland Mills is so distinctive and so loud that you can actually hear it subtly through the director even before it drops. I don't know if everybody's going to hear this, but I'm going to turn up the volume. Well, if you couldn't hear it before through the register sender, you can certainly hear it now. This is the carrier noise from Monroe to Highland Mills. It's coming through the Monroe T-carrier, which is doing a pretty good job of letting us hear the details. We will get to hear this locally from Monroe in a later program. This carrier type is one of the independent mystery types. Sounds like Mystery Type 2 from Harrisonburg. Now, my dime is doomed because I got a test line that went off hook. That gave us the tone. But I choinked, that is, reset the trunk by flashing. So before I lose my dime, I'll flash a vacant level, and then reset the trunk again and call the test line back again. Then I'll finally hang up and it'll collect my dime.
This is a recording from Highland Mills, New York. The number you have dialed is not in service at this time. If you need assistance, please hang up and dial your operator. This is a recording from Highland Mills, New York. The number you have dialed is not in service at this time. If you need assistance, please hang up and dial your operator. This is...
I dialed 928. This time the buzz is so loud you can't hear the carrier underneath. Whoa, incoming.
Hello? Hello? Hello, what number were you calling? What number did you just dial?
They hung up, and that's good, because I'd put my coin in. Just in case you didn't catch all that, right before I was going to get a dial tone, an incoming caller slipped into my line. I put my dime in on top of the incoming call, and they didn't want to talk. When they hung up, I was left in a silent place, and then when I hung up from that, the equipment actually returned my dime. That's unusual. Bell System does not do that. It would make it a little harder for the Dime Holders of America to operate here. Anyway. This time we've just put in a dime to see what happens on a permanent signal, that is, a phone left off the hook. In many places, the director will dial something to give you a reorder or even a recording. In other places, it'll just drop out and leave you on the switching train with nothing dialed. Sounded like the director just dropped, so I flashed a 2, and I'm sitting on a selector. Now I'm going to try flashing a 6 to get back to the test line. Okay, this is just weird. I got this instead of the test line dial tone, and this includes a ringtone, which I haven't heard before, in the background of the loud clicking, which I have no idea what is. And as if to make things even stranger, look what happens when I finally get off this thing.
Then you have this much room.
Hello, what number are you dialing, please?
4969840.
Okay, and who did you want to speak to there?
Anybody who's there.
Oh, were you calling a public phone?
Yeah.
Well, that's what you've reached.
Who is this?
This is me. Who is you?
Who are you?
This is John Q. Public.
I'm overjoyed. And I'm Marilyn Monroe.
Fantastic. Do you often make a habit of dialing public phones? Is that a hobby in this town?
Yes, it is.
Oh, wow, that's really far out.
Yes, isn't it?
How far out is it? So far out, but by the time you get to the... Never mind. Anyway, where are you? Are you in Washingtonville or what?
Yeah.
Well, anyway, yeah, okay. Anyway, I needed to make a few calls here, so, it would help if you could, call back a little later, unless you need to speak to someone, of course.
Yeah.
Were you trying to reach someone
Yeah.
in particular?
Yeah.
Who?
A certain person.
A certain person?
Yeah.
Should I ask if he's around?
Yeah.
What's his name? Or she? What's her name?
Just ask for a certain person, and that person will come to the phone.
Oh, a certain person, right. Well, listen, I really must be going.
Oh, it was very nice speaking to you.
Oh, very nice speaking to you.
And I must talk to you again.
Okay, you probably won't.
Good. Bye.
Don't get smart.
What happens next is I suspect semi-random. I tried dialing a long-distance number without a 1 first to see how the equipment would handle it. It appeared to do nothing, so I started to flash, and eventually I ended up on a switching train with nothing dialed. Okay, I'm on a switching train, so I'm going to flash 2. And then after that, I'm going to get into this condition where every time I push down my switch hook, that loud clicking noise happens again. Finally, I'll end up on that mystery ring. I'm hung up now, and this is what it does. Every time I'm on hook, it's doing that loud flashing. Fortunately, I was able to escape from that. Now I'm going to try dialing a long-distance area code without a 1 first. Oh, it's this. It's going to vacant code, but only 15 seconds after I completely gave up dialing. This is what happens when they just leave a code unwired.
This is a recording from Washingtonville, New York. The number you have dialed is not in service at this time.
The first time I worked with a 102 director system, it was in Durham, North Carolina, and I wasn't doing what I'm doing here. Here, I'm dialing known working office codes, and then also I'm dropping the director and checking around the switching train. So here, I'm not really encountering this particular phenomenon very much. But in Durham, I was trying codes on the director. I would pick up, get a dial tone, put in my money, and I would try this code and that code. And what was extremely irritating was that every time I dialed a non-working code, the director would just sit there, as it did just now. And then 15 seconds later, it would slowly decide to give me the recording. Do you have any idea how slow that makes it to try one code after another? This feature, which is really kind of a default because this is what happens when the phone company doesn't specifically wire the codes, this behavior was such a disincentive to playing with the phone that I incorporated it into a system I designed in the early 1980s as a security feature. Now, if you dial something invalid and you fill up the maximum number of digits that the register sender can take, it still waits 5 seconds after the last digit you try before then finally saying, oh, he's through dialing? Okay, well, I'll give him the vacant code. Major disincentive. Here's a case of that happening. I start out by dialing 00, nothing happens, so I try some more digits, nothing happens, and some more, nothing, and some more, and then finally, after I give up, you get the recording. And by the way, it dials 21 to do that. And we're sitting on the recording queue again. I don't know why the buzz got louder this time. That's probably a random event.
This is a recording from Washingtonville, New York. The number you have dialed is not in service at this time.
Trying the code 113. Used to be directory assistance. And it's doing it again.
Yeah, this is an if in doubt, sit there and then give recording off it.
Here's what happens if you actually try to dial a long distance call with a 1 first. That's right, it just plain dials everything you dial, which from coin doesn't work because 1's a vacant level. Next I'm going to try star and pound to see what it does.
This is a recording from Washingtonville, New York.
star and pound are completely ignored. Oh well. Finally, we'll dial operator and make some calls to Sloatsburg, the stop we had in our previous program. Now, there's one detail that I want to call your attention to that we didn't know the meaning of at the time. The operator dials out on the number 1 EAX switch in Monroe. The giveaway that that's going on is this noise. Of course, at the time, I had no idea that that is a certifiable sound of a number 1 EAX, but the fact that you hear that noise for just an instant means that's what she's using.
May I help you?
Yes, could you get me 753-0386?
0386?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. $0.55 more, please, for 3 minutes.
55 cents more. Could you return? I put a quarter in originally. Could you return that?
65 cents, sir.
Okay, 65. Just a second.
Thank you. Number you're calling from? Your number, sir? Sir?
Oh, hello.
Yeah.
496-9840.
Thanks.
I'm sorry. The number you have reached is not in service at this time. If you need assistance, please hang up and dial your operator. This is a recording. 914-753. I'm sorry. The number you have reached is not in service at this time. If you need assistance, please hang up and dial your operator.
That's 753-0386?
Yeah, I'm sure that number's... Just a minute. Let me check. Hold on. Hold it. Let me check that. Are you sure that was it? Isn't that the one that we've been calling?
What number you dial?
0386.
No, it's 083.
Oh, 0836. Okay. Operator?
Yes,
Yeah, everything's... Just make it 753-0836. I'm sorry.
thank you.
The number you have reached is not in service at this time. If you need assistance, please hang up and dial your operator. This is a recording. 914-753. I'm sorry. The number you have reached is not in service at this time.
May I help you?
You need to go through an XBP.
Yes, indeed, and that XPT is Nyack. Sloatsburg is in the Nyack sector. We're currently in the Monroe sector, and the next program is the recording that Ben made from the Monroe step. Now here's an end note about the pulsing noises that we hear on the register sender here. There is something that I am at a loss to explain. Now with the 102 director system, you hear a lot of pulsing noises that have nothing to do with what's going on the trunk. Just dialing the local office code 496 here, you hear all of that, and absolutely nothing has happened on the switching train or any trunk. The problem I'm having is that when we call certain local offices, specifically Goshen 294, Maybrook 427, and Chester 469, there is an additional event that I don't know what is that does sound like something is going on the trunk. The extra event, hey, quiet, stay. Did I ask you for an extra event? The extra event occurs after the trunk is selected. For example, here is a call to Goshen 294, which has to be converted to 29. 2, 9. There, that third event sounds like something happened on the trunk. Here it is by itself. One more time. From the sound of it, it sounds like something is going on involving the trunk. I just can't figure out what. I've looked at it in a sound editor, and there appear to be two spikes, 155 milliseconds apart. If the trunk had flashed supervision upon seizure, that might be what it is. The trouble is the trunks don't do that, and you can tell because when we dial 496 plus the trunk code, it doesn't happen. So those two loud spikes, 155 milliseconds apart, that happen on Goshen, Maybrook, and Chester, I am at a loss to explain what that is. It's not a digit being dialed. It's not the trunk flashing. It seems to resonate with the sound of the trunk, but I don't know what it is. Just had to say that in order to be complete, because we're very much into listening to the sounds and knowing what they mean, but this one has me stumped. The trunk isn't flashing. I don't think it's dialing anything because it wouldn't look like that if it were. So I give up. Ben's recording from Monroe begins the next program.